Hello everyone, my name is JP Rec, and in this video we will discuss ideas on classroom setup and design. So the objective of this video is to explore the different ways to set up or design your classroom to make it easier to incorporate physical activity throughout the school day. We will discuss how to arrange desks by showing different classroom setups, flexible seating options, activity ideas, and additional ways to have a physical activity-friendly classroom. So as a disclaimer, you don't need a big area like the hall, gym, cafeteria, or outside to be physically active. You can use these big areas, but it is not necessary. The idea is that we want to stay in the classroom since more behavior issues can arise during these transition periods from classroom to elsewhere. So let's take a look at some classroom setups. Moving desks and rearranging to make space for activity takes time, but by having a setup that allows for ample space for movement around the students' desks and for an activity area at the front of the classroom is beneficial for classroom physical activity. Having a classroom that is already set up for students to engage in physical activity also requires less effort on your part as a teacher in preparing and planning for the future. We will discuss 3 general arrangements here and the advantages and disadvantages for each. Also, it is important to note that each design is dependent on how large or small your classroom is. The first example represents the traditional classroom setup, where desks are arranged in rows with all students directly facing the front of the classroom. An advantage of this setup in regard to physical activity is that it allows for more movement to occur around each student's desk. However, this can result in having a small area, as you can see up at the front of the classroom, as shown with the purple shaded area. In the second example, desks are arranged into groups, which is great for promoting student collaboration. However, as you can see, some students have their backs completely turned from the front of the classroom. A simple solution would be to simply rotate these groups 90 degrees so that no students are having to turn completely around to see the front. These groupings will provide students with some space to move within the proximity of their desks with a bigger area at the front and center of the classroom for larger activities. The third and last example shows desks arranged in more of a theater-style seating. All students are facing towards the front of the classroom and the activity area is larger than the other 2 examples. Depending on how much space you have in your classroom, the desks in this setup can be spread out a little bit more to provide students with more space to move around by their desks. So the main idea with classroom setups or arrangements is to provide opportunities for children to move around while visiting learning centers and other special classroom areas. Many people may have the mistaken impression that children learn best when sitting still, but research now proves that many children need extensive mobility while learning. Children learn significantly more if they move from one area to another as they acquire new information. Therefore, it is ideal to figure out what works best for you and the students and do that, but also what works best for the space that is available to you in your classroom while being accommodating to the students' physical activity and learning needs. However, as we know, some arrangements are not feasible given the circumstances of COVID. Generally speaking, recommendations are suggesting that desks are arranged so that students remain 3 to 6 feet of each other while seated at their desks, with 1 student per table or desk. And although it is recommended students remain 3 to 6 feet apart while at their desks, there are still ways in which students' desks can be arranged in order to group them while remaining a safe distance from each other. And we understand that these are tough times, and we appreciate all the teachers who are working hard to prepare for this upcoming school year. So try to prepare activities that don't require students to share supplies or equipment to limit the spread and sharing of germs. We also understand that students will possibly be spending more time at their desks. So one way to get students to be a little bit more physically active while remaining at their desk is flexible seating. A few inexpensive ways to incorporate flexible seating is to add resistance bands to the legs of each student's chair or allow students to either voluntarily stand or kneel at their desk during work periods. Resistance bands provide students the opportunity to bounce and move their feet against the resistance of the bands to work their leg muscles while remaining seated. Allowing students to stand or kneel helps to break up the amount of time that they are remaining stationary at their desks. Other options of flexible seating include wobble stools, standing desk, pedal station, swivel chairs, and yoga balls. The benefit of these options is that these seats require students to use more of their abdominal and back muscles to promote good posture and to strengthen their core. And although some teachers may think these seating options can be a distraction for students, research has actually shown that these options improve students' focus and desire to learn. Additionally, given budget restrictions and the inability to equip each student with a flexible chair, flexible seating can be arranged throughout the classroom when supplying each student with a flexible seat is not feasible. Wobble stools, swivel chairs, or yoga balls can be placed at learning centers for students to use during free time or work periods. So a big benefit of flexible seating is that it allows for ample space for students to move around the room and at their desks. Flexible seating is a great way to allow students to begin self-regulating their physical and academic needs while providing non-disruptive movement if implemented correctly. And of course, this comes with setting rules and expectations for flexible seating early on and being persistent on the rules of use. Next, we will discuss some design-related ideas for your classroom that encourage children to be more physically active, and our first one is academic-focused stations. A lot of you may already have stations set up in your classroom. Having these areas already designated in your classroom allows you to be flexible with different subjects. For instance, one day the stations can be set up for math lessons, and the next day be used for another subject. Stations should be set up around the perimeter of the room, with one station in each corner or along each wall to provide ample space for movement. For math, give the students a worksheet using problems formulated like the example provided. The sum or difference of the problem would then tell students the number of reps they should perform of a given exercise, such as jumping jacks. Another is spelling. Have students channel their best YMC dance moves and have students spell words with their bodies. And the last one is to have students read a story that has various action words or verbs that students are able to act out while reading the story. These activities can also be done as a whole class, but having stations helps students to take ownership of their learning. There are many other active learning activities that can be used in stations, so be creative, and if you can't think of anything, we encourage you to do some research and see what others are doing. The next idea is to design a walking path within your classroom using floor tape or to construct a dashed line that students are able to follow. This walking path can lead to the different stations you have set up around your classroom. The classroom walking path can also be used for a variety of subjects from geography to science, history, and even art. Be creative and come up with a different weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly walking path theme, such as geometric shapes, to identify the stations along the path. Assign each station a shape, having a square station, triangle station, and a circle station. The walking path can also be used for an active break or active indoor recess option. As you can see, the walking path can serve many purposes. If you are interested in learning more, check out the supplemental video that explains the walking path in more detail. This video will provide you with some additional advice to set up and lesson ideas. Lastly, we'll discuss additional ideas to have your classroom be physical activity friendly. So the first one is physical activity bulletin board or activity wall. This can serve many purposes, such as showing the beginning and end of this day activity, show students their group for the day, as well as your activity calendar that shows what classroom activities you will be doing for the day. You could also post a weekly fun fact about healthy behaviors or the movement of the week that can be incorporated into various parts of the school day and learning. The activity wall is also a great place to list the rules and expectations for physical activity in your classroom. The next one is place large furniture along walls, not blocking walkways. This way, large furniture isn't having to be moved when the space is needed to be physically active. And lastly, remember to reserve room for your time and space area to help with the calming and redirection students. Thank you for viewing this video on the classroom setup and design. Check out the other videos and resources that are provided as part of this webinar.